Welcome to the Final Frontiers radio show, where we spotlight inspiring missionary endeavors around the globe. Stay tuned to hear how you can personally get involved helping the Lord's frontline soldiers effectively advance the gospel where it has never been preached before. In this episode, we'll have an interview with missionary Dennis Ellis about his extraordinary time in the country of Russia. We'll have a unique discussion with a national preacher's wife in the Muslim nation of Azerbaijan, and we have Brother Babu Prasad back with us to talk about their work in a local leper colony in India.
I'm John Nelms, and I'm here with Brother Dennis Ellis, who's been involved in our ministry for a long time. We were looking to find some preachers we could work with in Russia, in the former Soviet Union area. And that's when we ran upon Dennis and his wife, Katya, who's a Russian by birth, a Russian citizen. And Dennis had been in Russia for quite a long time already and became our director for that region. So every preacher we were supporting at that time was one that he had referred to us and could vouch for as a doctrinally sound, morally pure preacher who was busy planting churches. And we're honored today to have him here in our studios with us. And we'd like to ask him some questions and let you get to know his ministry and what's been going on in Russia over the past few decades. So, Dennis, tell me, if you would, a little bit about your ministry there, maybe how you got there and how you stayed there.
John, we first went to Russia to build a Bible college. That was the need. I heard about that in a conference, and I told him I'd be interested. I was qualified in education, and it ended up that much bigger than that. We did start a Bible college. There was little resistance to the work there because going into a communist country that was wide open, they didn't know what to do with us. We saw in the first 3 years over 40,000 people receive Jesus Christ that we registered. After that, we quit because nobody believed it anyway. But from the very beginning, we had made friendship with a person called Father Igor, who was the pastor of the largest Orthodox church in St. Petersburg, 13,000 members. On Easter, that first Easter, May of 92, he let us have the services, which had never happened in Russia, where a evangelical Christian from the United States could hold a service. That morning, there were 684 people prayed to receive Jesus Christ. I was overwhelmed. Wow. I'd been in churches in America where they hadn't had that many saved since Noah and the Ark. That morning, we gave away 3,000 Bibles and ran out of Bibles. There were so many people who had never had a Bible. Not a priest in that Orthodox church had a Bible. That church produces the Patriarch of Russia, Alexei II, came out of that church. We saw Father Igor kneel and ask Jesus Christ into his heart in our ministry. He said, "I've never heard the gospel." He had a doctor's degree in theology. He introduced us to the president of the Orthodox Seminary with 400 students, Father Gennady, and in that same meeting, he bowed his head and prayed to receive Jesus Christ. There was nothing restraining. God had a people in Russia that belonged to him, and he was mowing down every obstacle, John. We saw things that's hard to even explain to people. Over the period of time, we probably saw 100 to 120,000 people receive Christ. In our church that our pastor in 1 year led 5,000 people to the Lord. And many of them were transits. And we then began to get requests for pastors, Bibles all over Russia. We couldn't meet the needs, but we did as much as we could. We planted 8 new churches there. 3 huge humanitarian organizations, 4 Christian ACE schools in Russia, speaking English, 1 Bible college, worked with 9,000 orphan kids. That was just some of the highlights of what God was doing.
What was the advantage to you of having these social organizations?
We made a contract, a legal Russian contract with the mayor of St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg now had 6 million people then, that we would not give out any clothes, any food, or any medicines to a group before we had presented the gospel. They agreed with that in contract. So we went into plants like the plants that makes the trolley cars there. They're sold all over Europe. We would speak to 800 or 900 people at a time, present the gospel, and many times 80% of those people would pray to receive Christ. They had never heard, and God was just moving. So the advantage was there. In the Orthodox Church, they wanted us, because of my business background, to help them start Christian businesses. And we did that, from banks, fur companies, railroad companies. It was unreal. But in the school system, they would give us an entire school, and I would bring groups from America, put a person that had a desire to present the gospel in each room with a translator. I saw atheist professors come and say, "Dennis, we're atheists here, but we want to know your culture." And I said, "Yeah, you're going to get some American culture. Present the gospel." Usually 100% of those kids, 80 was the minimum, would pray with us out loud with tears streaming down their face to receive Jesus Christ. It was just a Holy Spirit thing. And when we would get out of those classes, John, they would be runners outside the school building from other schools that heard that we were there and would run and asked us, "Would you please come to our school?" And we would come, and kids you could hear running down the hall saying, "The Americans are here, the Americans are here." And we had them all a Bible. They had never even seen a Bible, no less have a Bible. It was, in my ministry, and I've been preaching 50-something years, it was the most exciting time I had ever experienced. And it went on and on and on. From government officials, we had people high up in the Russian government and the military that prayed to receive Christ. I preached one time to 100 surgeons and gave them the gospel and a new Bible, and many of them prayed to receive Christ. Universities, we would speak to the whole staff. Like I said, they didn't know what to do with us.
Well, you were one of the first missionaries in Russia, and I know in 1989 when the Berlin Wall fell, many guys started going there because they could. But also, it only seemed to last about 5 or 10 years, and they began leaving.
Yeah.
And, of course, now missionaries aren't allowed back in Russia as a missionary. What was it about your ministry that allowed you to go and stay instead of going and leaving, as most of them did?
You know, there's a window of opportunity in every cultural situation. We've learned that through studying history. The window of opportunity opened in the early 90s, and they really didn't know exactly what to do. We could stop on Main Street, start singing, and have a ministry meeting, 500 or 600 people meeting on Main Street. Traffic stopped. Nobody blowed their horns. Nobody said, "Go away." If somebody tried to stop us, the people there would say, "We've waited 80 years to hear what these men are telling us." And we'd just see people saved everywhere. So at the beginning, even though they arrested my young pastors every Saturday, and I'd go in and scare them to death that it was going to be in American newspapers, you know, and that horrified them, and get them out. So the first part there, but then God blessed me with the most wonderful wife in the world, who was a Russian, and I had a green card. And so then I had legal rights. They couldn't get rid of me then. Then our ministry began to mature. We had a Bible college that literally sent pastors trained to every facet of Russian life, and now they're all over the world. So it changed. The street evangelism began to suffer. Now in Russia, you can't, if you preach on the streets, you're arrested. If you're a Russian, you're put in prison. If you're an American, your passport is stamped and you're sent out of the country. You can't produce evangelical materials. You can't give out Bibles. You can't have children under 18 in your church without a special documentation. So that door of opportunity has ceased, and our churches went back underground.
But you are, or at least have been, producing Russian sermons and teaching and so forth that goes out over the internet, correct?
We have a ministry that we've placed under this ministry called Open Light Ministries. And it is a website Russians can go to all over the world, and they do in 30 countries. And they can listen to over 250 messages. And we're hoping soon to have some Bible college courses on that. They can listen free. And the comments we get from all over the world is fantastic. I had one lady in South Africa who was from Russia said, "I've listened to all 253 times. Can you please put on some more messages?" Now listen to 250 messages 3 times.
That's incredible.
She listens to 2 or 3 a day, and we get letters like that from everywhere. And that's also opened some doors for us overseas, like in the Ukraine. It's opened up several new ministries there for us. And now Final Frontiers has pastors in the Ukraine.
Thank God we do, finally, yes. And they're doing
Still
a good
have
job.
some in Russia.
Yeah, not many.
Siberia.
You're going to have to go back over and find us some more.
Yeah.
But they seem to be very, very dedicated to what they're doing, no matter what they have to withstand, and that's a blessing for us to hear from them. Well, I want to thank you for sharing all this with us today. I think it'll be a blessing to our listeners. We look forward to having you back again at another time. You and Katja both.
It's been our privilege, and we love you, John. And most churches I go in have never heard of Final Frontiers, and I explained to them why they hadn't. But God has elevated this to the largest church planting organization in the United States and maybe the world. But it takes a man with a vision.
Well, he empowers us to do all we do, and then he keeps us unknown by everybody else so we don't get the big head. That way he gets all the glory for it.
And it maybe keeps the enemy from finding out where we're at to attack us.
That's right. We just sneak behind the enemy lines and do the damage. But God bless you, Dennis.
Thank you for this privilege.
Final Frontiers helps find support for a number of persecuted preachers in the Middle East. We likewise have a crucially important Bible smuggling program for those countries where God's Word is not only inaccessible, but where it is sometimes punishable by death to even own a copy of the Scriptures. If you desire to join our Bible smugglers team to help advance God's Word to all people in all lands, by all means, visit finalfrontiers.world. Hello, my name is Joshua Martin, and today I have a lady who's a national missionary in the country of Azerbaijan on the phone right now. Her husband actually led her to the Lord. He accepted Christ before she did. He went through a lot of persecution in his own family there, and he does not speak English, but she does, and so we're having her talk today and tell about his ministry. Could you talk to us about your husband's testimony of salvation? I mean, that was a really interesting story. I remember.
Yeah. My husband, one of his friends invited him to go to some house. He said that we are collecting there and we are praying to God. And that time he said, I don't want like this. But one day he said, okay, I will come with you. He came to fellowship and he liked the pupils' love who was there inside the room. They showed a lot of love. But when he came Christ, temptation is starting. His twin brother got sick, high blood pressure. He almost died. And all parents, saying, you brought our curse. That's why your brother is getting sick. And he died. But God put, he's alive. Take him to hospital. And nobody believes that. Doctors say, no, he has the heart is not pumping. He's died. But no, he's not dying. God told me he's alive. One small hospital, he said, okay, I will take this man. He took his brother to hospital and starting pray in dark room. That time the dark room was very shiny, it's God's light came there. And his voice, he said, your brother will alive and you will be glory to me through this sickness. And he ran out from room and told her mom and sister, they were crying. And he said, he is in life. He is not died. Then doctor came after 3 days and he said, he has action, he moved a little bit.
Yeah.
That was good sign that he is alive. And when he came himself, he said, I saw my body, my spirit came out from my body during prayer time. Yeah, God brought his spirit in his body again. You can't imagine how his heart was. My husband's hair is getting white from stress. Everybody said, no, you change your religion and God punished us. But when he get better, he come alive. All family repented. All family. They are 10 brothers and sisters. Yes. And God, glory God.
So he accepted Christ and he went through a lot of persecution. That's what happens a lot in Azerbaijan. The family just considers that you've betrayed them. So his twin brother gets sick and then the whole family blames it on him. and then he comes through it miraculously, and the whole family accepts Christ. That is such a beautiful story. It's awesome.
And that happened that day. He told about Christ to him, and he brought church to him. After fellowship, he got sick. That was temptation.
Yeah, right away he gets sick. The enemy fought right away. But well, you guys have had a lot of hard times, and I know God called your husband to take the whole family out, and you went away from the big city, and you minister in poorer areas, and I know it was really hard at first. You guys have been through a lot. Can you talk about your ministry without telling where it is, but just what it's like there, what you do?
Yeah, actually, first our vision here is to make disciples and to grow church and multiply. I don't know this.
Multiply the.
To make, a lot of church in this area.
Right.
Even in city and countryside too. We are men's meeting, youth group, and kids programs.
Okay.
I like this, yeah.
And so you can meet together in a house.
Yes, yeah, each Sunday meeting fellowship, and my husband is leading this. Yeah, he preached, and now, praise God, we have 2 boys discipling. They are ready.
And you have a vision to be able to train young men there. That was one of the things you had been talking about. We wish the people will save and disciples, and actually we are alone here and we need workers. If someone will come and join us, we will be very happy. So for someone to come and help there, they would live in their own place. They could meet with you sometimes. They could help. But they probably have to come and teach English, wouldn't they?
Yes, that will be perfect, because in Azerbaijan, even in this city, we need English teachers, because everybody asks, teachers. That will be perfect when someone will come and teach, and they can get visa process will be easy for teaching. That will be very helpful, and we can spread gospel through this way.
So that's the open door. If someone out there listening to this, you wanted to go into a country like this, you could go as an English teacher. And even right now in the town where you live, that's still open. That's something that we've been trying to make known.
Yeah, they can open us, doors, and they can make friendship, and they can meet with us, and we can work later with them. That will be perfect. It works, it works. It's very good.
Can you talk about persecution there, what it is that the believers face?
When it is hard now, even Muslims too, who lives here because of, terrorism or something, the government every time looking for people. Before it was easy, but now not. If we were sharing in the park or somewhere, they just coming, what are you doing here? They give us problems. They couldn't give out registration. It's problem registration. Yeah. If they know about you are Christian, they will kick them out work or school.
Right.
That's not easy. Even my son has a problem with his teachers. That's hard.
Yeah.
But through prayer, we can stand. We are praying every day, and I'm praying my sons have peace, not hate.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
This is a country that it doesn't have huge terrorist attacks, but the whole country is Muslim. And so there's a lot of persecution. And even though they say that there's freedom there, still the believers can be put in prison, and people can be killed sometimes. That's happened. There's stories of people a lot of times it is just people losing their jobs and no one wants to help them, or they cut their water bill off.
Yeah.
So it's a hard life.
Yes. We know God every time, protect us. We have no fear.
How can people pray for you and your family? What can they pray about?
Yeah, we need to pray. Please pray for that our ministry will be effective here and to grow up in spiritual more and able to take care of these our families, these believers' family. And please pray for our health, and more workers will come here. That's our big need. We need more workers.
That's what they're asking for, workers.
Right, yeah. That's our passion. Someone will come here.
Yes.
Everybody wants to go to big city to work, but we need here someone.
Yes, in the smaller places and the rural places too.
Yes, that's very important. Yeah.
This country, Iran borders it all along the southern part. And then up above, you've got Armenia, and you've got Georgia and Russia, and then you have the Caspian Sea is over there in the east. So that's kind of the area of the world where this country is. A lot of people have not even considered Azerbaijan. It's fun for somebody to hear someone actually talking from that country and hearing about your needs. If you want to get a hold of us at finalfrontiers.world or at reachbeyondborders.org, you can get in contact with us and find out ways to help her family. They're doing a good work there. And if somebody out there, if you are an English teacher and you want to see about getting into the country, contact us at one of those places. In the show notes of this episode, we're going to do a couple episodes on this. And in the show notes, both times, you'll see you can either get in contact with us or you can get in contact with Reach Beyond Borders and find a way to help. So
if any groups or something will come, from school or somewhere, we can give them ministry here. They can come and we will very welcome them.
Anything else that you want to share? Anything that's on your heart that people could pray about?
We just came from ministry. One woman is repented. We are joyful for this. We are so happy now. She received Jesus.
Wow.
And we are very happy. Yeah, we just came. He is now very happy from joy. He is in heaven.
Yeah, I bet he is. That's a blessing tonight.
Yes.
Thank you today for talking. I really appreciate it.
Thank you too, and it's my pleasure. I'm so sorry again, my bad English. I will learn more.
Well,
Thanks again.
Yeah, you guys take care.
Okay, brother. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thanks.
Your inquiries and comments are important to us. If you have questions or perhaps subject matter you would like to have addressed on this show, please visit us at finalfrontiers.world.
Beginning in the 1700s, missionaries were defined as being church planters in other cultures. Generally, those other cultures were in foreign lands with foreign customs, foods, lifestyles, and languages. Sometimes, like in the Americas, the cultures were totally different, but not so far away. In fact, they were often less than a day's walk into the forest. Such missionary endeavors to the American Indians were carried out in the Northeast by missionaries like David Brainerd, and in the Southeast by missionaries like John Wesley. As they ventured further into the forest, they left behind small tribal churches, sometimes led by tribal preachers and sometimes by other foreigners. Usually their efforts produced congregations that developed needed ministries like schools and orphanages. Such worthwhile ministries were first staffed by ministers, not missionaries. In time, the staff of specialized workers such as doctors and teachers would outgrow the number of church planting missionaries. Because of this, and the need for these workers to be supported, it did not take long before the term missionary had morphed from being church planters to becoming merely church workers. From there, the term missionary took another hit to its original definition, in that missionaries almost ceased to be church planters and became virtually, without exception, church pastors and workers. Today, statistically, most missionaries will never plant a church. They will serve only as a helper or assistant until the aging missionary retires or moves on, and then they will take his place. For this reason, most of the good people today who claim to be and are supported as missionaries are in fact only pastors or workers. There are two missionary misconceptions prevalent today. One is that all missionaries are church planters. That is factually incorrect. The other is that a missionary doesn't have to be a church planter. That is biblically incorrect. To fulfill the Great Commission, pastors need to re-educate our churches that a missionary is not a church worker, he is a church planter. I'm John Nelms. To learn more about missions, order a copy of my book, The Great Omission, on our website at finalfrontiers.world.
In third world countries, the only truth that some children know is hard work in the hot sun, an expectation of life of disease, hardship, hunger, cursings, and abandonment. We can't change where they live, but we can change how they live. We can touch their life and make a difference. With hundreds of millions lying on the brink of starvation, would you say with your Lord, "Suffer little children to come unto me, and forbid them not"? If you would like to sponsor a child, visit us at finalfrontiers.world.
This is Joshua Martin, and today I have Pastor Babu Prasad. He's a friend of mine. I've been able to visit him several times. He's in India, in the southern state of Karnataka, in the city of Bangalore. And one of the biggest things there that touched my heart while I was in that territory was visiting the nearby leper colony. His church is there every week ministering in that place. We were able to go into the hospital, and we were able to visit the actual colony itself where the government has set aside that land. There's about 250 some families there. Over 120 of them were children. And I have stood in front of those children, gotten to speak to them and see how they do ministering there. Brother, it's good to talk to you today. Could you tell us about what's going on, what you're doing in the leper colony?
Yeah, there were about nearly more than 250 families and more than 120 children in that colony. Because of the sickness, the leprous colony has been rejected socially, economically, and politically.
Right.
If anyone, goes there and want to do something, they will reject. Because the many people, they don't take care of them. As a church, we went and visited this colony in 1999, almost nearly 20 years. And they do also rejected us. Then slowly we started showing them the love of Christ and talking to them, and we shook hands with them, because in India no one shook hands with the leper people. We shook hands with them, and we able to talk them to their own language, because these leper people, they're not from Bangalore. These leper people, they're all over from Karnataka. Once if in a village in Karnataka, if they find he has a leprosy, he will be driven out of the village and also from the home. So they come and take shelter in this place, and be able to find them. We started sharing the gospel to them, and we started taking tuitions for the small kids, helping them to write English and give them nutrition, food. Once in Christmas time, we give them new clothing, whatever we can. Twice in a year, we used to give them stationaries and sometimes toiletry, so that they can accept us into their colony. Sometimes if they don't do anything, they will reject us. So they acknowledge them from our church. Now they are really caring for us, so they are coming and searching for us. Even though they have leprosy, they have a precious soul. That's what I teach them in the church. Soul is very important. So we, as a church, we go there, we talk to them, and especially we care for the children, because the children are neglected in the school. Most of the children, they go to the government school. Now they're neglected because they are leprous children. Now they don't teach them properly. Some children, they are in 6th standard, 7th standard. They're not known a single word from English. So we used to teach them English, and they're really excited, and we are very welcome in that colony. And my prayer is that through the children, I want to build a small church over there.
Yes.
And no more I want to call them as a leper colony. I want to call that colony to be a Christian colony.
Amen. I know the first time that I was there, I cried for several days just on and off thinking about them. It was such a burden on me. And I remember seeing how they lived in that place and some of the children. I remember one child showing me her and her father were growing these pigeons to sell. And that was how they were trying to make some income. And another lady on the street where the child was pushing her in a cart and her fingers were missing, and this old woman on the cart trying to beg, trying to gain some finances. Faith Baptist Church in Poplar Bluff, Missouri sent Jason and I back to help. We bought a whole bunch of things for all those families and gave them little care packages. That was a blessing. Thank you for letting us do that. And we hope that showed a little bit of love to them, where you were able to hand out tracts later, be able to witness to them.
That's the first time they get so much of, in a very good, decent way. They got some nice packets of some, eatable items and, toothpaste and a brush. They never use a brush for cleaning the teeth. That's the first time they're using the brush.
Well, our dream right now, what we're hoping at Final Frontiers is to be able to put something together where we could give them the Power Pack Nano, where they could listen to the Scripture. They could actually listen to it in their own language, or see that Jesus film, some of them. But even if they can just listen, because I know many of them are blind, especially in the hospital. So if we could do something like that, for our listeners out there, if you want to be a part of that, if you want to give towards something like that, where this leper colony could have the gospel given in every single family, and they could have a device there that plays the message to them. They could listen to the New Testament, or they could see the film. If you want to help with that, you can contact us at finalfrontiers.world. Thank you, brother. Thanks for talking about this. This is still a deep thing in my heart, and I want to do something for them.
You're welcome.
You've been listening to the Final Frontiers radio show, funded by sponsors like you. Thank you so much for joining us. Through the funding of national and native preachers, we endeavor to effectively advance the gospel where it has never been preached before. If you want more information, visit www.finalfrontiers.world. That's finalfrontiers.world.